10:07, 7 past 10. Bruce and Dan Show. I'm Jake Hartford.
And I'm John Kess, taking your calls at 591-8900.
Right at the end of the last hour, I said Bruce and Dan were gone, and if I had more time, I would have said they were gone doing Don Wade and Roma's show.
Because they're here.
We've been doing. Yeah, they're here. We saw them this morning.
I just saw them a few seconds. Yeah.
Touch me, feel me, as Bruce always says.
I didn't want to touch Bruce. I admit it.
Which is a reminder to, Don is still recovering from his surgery. If you wish to send him a get well wish, you can. You just go to getwelldon@gmail.com. You can just send him an email there, getwelldon@gmail.com, or go to the website, WLSAM.com, and you can find information there. So we wish Don well if he's listening.
And, and come back soon because we need you. You've got something today when I heard about it, I just had to sit down and calm down because this really bothered me.
This is, a lot of stuff is getting lost because of the campaign that's going on. And this is a story out of Houston. And this is not the first time we've heard something like this. There is a U.S. Marine, Joseph D. Logan, Corporal Joseph D. Logan. He and 5 other members of his unit were killed in a helicopter crash in Afghanistan back in January of this year. And the president sent a letter of condolence to the family. And the family is upset. Very upset. The father says, "It opened up a wound in our heart you can't fix. You can't send another letter. You can't make it right." And the reason the father says this was because the letter that was sent, he calls it, came late, it was impersonal, it was disrespectful, and essentially a form letter. And he says, he said about his son, who's 22, he said, he would have been more mad about this than I am. Father said that he believes Obama did little more than sign his name to the document, and he believes his son deserved better. So the TV station down in Houston, KPRC, they went and found a couple other families who lost their sons in the war in Afghanistan, and we're up over just over 2,000 now. And the letters they got were identical, one page, typed, except for name, rank, and service branches. A form letter.
It's called Operation Auto Open Gate, and there are many, I'm learning now, many veterans groups are trying to get to the bottom of this.
The TV station down in Houston went to a professor at one of the universities who kind of has been, they get involved in the history of how other administrations have done things and stuff like that. And the professor, Nancy Beck Young, said that it depends on the administration. What they do, she said, under George W. Bush, he would write the letters. She said they were more personal, individualized, and sometimes they were handwritten. This wasn't the case. No, this was a one-page, okay, what does this have to do with, a Marine died, press B1, spit it out.
Now, the White House insists through their fine spokesman, Jay Carney, the one who thought that Rich Daley covered Chicago like Andy of Mayberry. He has said in the past that the president signs every such letter personally. So they insist that the letters are personally signed. And you've got to think that however you feel as a chief executive, you've got to feel some sort of pain and anguish and sorrow for the men that you send into battle. My problem is not that whether he signed it or not, but that it seems so generic, a form letter. You just change the name, the rank, the serial number, thank you for your service. You'd think, George Bush, for all that he was hated and yelled at and burned in effigy, would write letters himself. And I think that the President Obama should be able to do that.
If you give your life for your country as president, you should be able to give a couple minutes of your time. If you don't want to personally handwrite it, dictate it and have someone type it up and then sign it. The professor who was quoted in the story, she said, this is kind of like the function of the modern age we live in now. It's very impersonal. I don't think it should be.
I text you. what people I guess people text each other wedding proposals or marriage proposals, but
here's
a young man who died, a young person who died in the service of their country. You know, on your between the 190 golfing trips, Mr. President, and the sucking up to Hollywood and all the other money people, and this goes for the Republicans too. You sign the letter, you write one to the family that gave their son to us. Okay?
Plus,
I don't see how hard that is.
Plus, it took 4 months. 4 months after his death to get the letter to the family. And you know how it was delivered? UPS truck. You would think it would come in the nice official White House letterhead, and with the envelope and the postman. Somebody from the not a post person coming or a UPS person coming, but somebody from the branch of service that, like, their son served in the Marines. It would have been one of the local Marine officers bringing the letter. You would think. In my White House, that's how I would do it.
I know a young man who wants to serve his country, and I love this young man very much. And to think that these politicians won't even take the time to do that is, it's beneath contempt.
The men and women that serve in our armed forces are flesh and blood. They're not drones. They're not just another piece of machinery. And when the machinery breaks down, you discard it and move on. They're not.
Send a form letter.
Margot in Burridge. Good morning, Margot.
Oh, hi. I was just trying to, enlighten these guys. They're not understanding. This president, everything for this president is about him. Now, he doesn't have a son. If you remember, everything's about him. When the people were killed in the theater, he was talking about his daughters, if they'd been in the theater and all that. So he doesn't have a son. So he can't relate to these people. And if he did have a son, his son would be like Trayvon Martin, who was not serving his country and never would. So that's what you're not understanding. It's just not about he can't relate to it, because it doesn't have anything he can relate to. No son.
Thank you, Margot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I want to believe. I don't want to believe that of our president, even if I disagree with him on policy. I don't want to believe this of him. And I would just like if he had somebody that would just, shake him by the, and again, I'm not making a threat on the president, but somebody who could go, "What are you doing,
It's
man?"
the management people around him.
You
would think somebody there would have brains and say, you know what? And they made a big deal at the Democratic convention about honoring the veterans. Remember that?
Yeah.
With the big warships in the background in the planes, and it turned out the warships were Russian and the planes were Turkish. Remember that?
Well, that's
that's the management.
When we come back, we do have a handwritten letter the president did write. We'll tell you about it.
10:15, time for traffic right now with Dave Stewart on 89 WLS. John Cass, Jay Cartford in for Bruce and Dan, who are in for Don and Roma. As John just said, the president has written personal condolence letters in the past. I have a copy of the text of one of them here. This was for back last November. This was read at the funeral of the person who died. He says, quote, "We extend our heartfelt condolences at this difficult time. He will be remembered for his infectious optimism and many contributions to American music. Please know that you and your family will be in our thoughts and prayers," unquote. This was for the family of rapper Heavy D, who did not die in Afghanistan, did not die in Iraq.
Would he die of cheeseburgers?
I don't know, but he died. The president had time for that. But for the service people, no. And UPS truck, nothing against UPS.
Right.
But imagine, what do you have? 4 months after your son dies, here's UPS with a condolence form letter?
Now I can hear the rage of some of the callers out there who are thinking this is just partisan. And I can tell you that honoring our servicemen is also about not covering up when they get killed by friendly fire, not sending them into war when we're not ready to fight the whole thing, not by giving them rules of engagement so that a young lieutenant seeing people put a roadside device on a road in Iraq at night can't just have the snipers pop them, but has to go down the next day and examine it and get his arms blown off. So there's all sorts of ways to honor them. Probably the best is not to even send them. But when they die, and this goes for both parties, but if they die, you write the damn letter, Mr. President.
Larry and Joliet. Good morning, Larry.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, sorry, John. I got to disagree. I think that the auto pen gets them form letters. I think that if the president was signing things all day long, every day, that's all he'd do for 4 years.
But you know what, Larry?
Give him the courtesy of the hand.
But Larry, there have been 2,000 military, just over 2,000 killed in Afghanistan over the 11 years. So not many on his watch. He has traveled, I don't know how many times for fundraisers. He's traveled for golf and all that stuff. Are you telling me he doesn't have a couple minutes on Air Force One when he's traveling? In this case, it would have been, what, a half hour for 6 different letters to dictate a letter? Tell me he doesn't have that time?
Whoever the Monica is of 2012, that's the intern's job. I think it doesn't go any further than that.
Oh, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. The Pentagon's big enough. They've got enough officers. They can have generals writing these letters for them and putting personal information in there. Sam on the west side. Hey, Sam.
Maybe the president shouldn't write these letters personally, because if he and I understand what you guys are saying. I mean, it's a great sacrifice. I'm so grateful these men and women are on the front line protecting freedom for the United States of America. But maybe there's an internal policy that the president can't be intimately involved in each and every death and wounding, because it will make it very difficult to objectively send men and women into battle.
That's the point, Sam. That's the point. And and it bothers me. And I'm not. This is not directed to you. It bothers me about the cheerleading on all sides. Listen, we send these men in there. 2 things they expect: that we back them up, that we bring them home,
well,
and that when they get hurt, that the president of the United States sign the letter himself. All right? Because it'll make it tougher for the next time for somebody to just go, let's send 10,000 men to Libya, or let's send 10,000 men to wherever. It should be tough. It should make them sick to their stomach every time they write it. And it shouldn't be like, let's make it easy for Obama or Bush or anyone, Republican or Democrat. They sign their name. Those men died for them.
You say that, and I understand.
Sam, you be careful where you go with this. I sound sincere. I'll talk to you about it later in person if you ever say that again.
John, I you know what? You can't. The decisions about sending people to their deaths.
Yes.
Probably has to be made more objectively.
Really, by a computer?
No,
because mom and dad send them.
John,
because mom and dad send them. They don't use a computer to send their boys.
Well,
okay, Sam. So don't stand up and start. You know what? Because I'd do the same thing if it was a Republican, and I hope to God that you would be the same way if it was a Democrat. But you're kind of like doing the protect Obama thing here. And Sam, I have to tell you, thanks for calling, but that's wrong, my friend. There's no protection here. Sign your name.
1021. Back after this.
89 WLS.
When the candidates want to reach you, they come here. Your common sense election headquarters, 89 WLS.
John Cass, Jay Cartford in for Bruce and Dan, and we're in for Don and Roma. Taking your calls, 591-8900. Let's quickly go to Kurt in Janesville. Good morning, Kurt.
Good morning. I have a quick story about President Bush. He was in Janesville here in 2004. I went to a rally for him, and on the way out, there was a reception line. He was shaking everybody's hand, and I said, Mr. President, my 2 boys in Iraq say hello. He turned around, looked me square in the face. He said, are they in the Army? I said, one's in the Marine, one's in the Army. He talked to me for about 5 minutes till a Secret Serviceman whisked him out, and he looked at me going all the way out the door.
The boys come
That's
home?
President Bush.
The boys come home, okay? Did your sons come home?
They're fine. They're fine. They went twice. One was called back again in 2009, but they're fine.
Good. All right. Thank you, Kurt.
You're welcome.
We're going to continue to take more of your calls at 591-8900. A lot of people want to weigh in on this. If we went with Sam's way, where the president doesn't know who's getting killed, how many are getting killed, what would happen when he calls the generals in to find out what's going to happen to the war? Does he ask them how many killed, or does he say, no, don't tell me because I don't want to know how we're doing?
Cone of silence, and that should apply to the next president, whoever it is. Republican or Democrat. This is not about partisanship at all. At all.
Again, people give their flesh and blood. They deserve better than a form letter delivered by UPS truck 4 months after the fact. I mean, think about what happened in Libya when the ambassador's body and the 3 other workers came back. The Americans came back. There was a big deal at Andrews Air Force Base.
Oh, very symbolic.
But
it was all about the video.
And then you read about everything that's happened behind the scenes, and it was just for show. It was just for show. 10:30, time for news, weather, traffic with Dave Stewart right here on 89 WLS.
When news breaks, turn to 89 WLS first to get the facts and form your own opinion. Chicago's talk leader, 89 WLS.
10:37. I want to remind you that the 89 WLS box office opens every Thursday, giving you a chance to win tickets to an upcoming show or event. This Thursday, listen all day for your chance to win a pair of tickets to see Mythbusters Behind the Myths tour at the Sears Center Arena on November 10th. For more info, go to WLSAM.com. We are talking about the letter. If you're just joining us, a family down in Houston, their son, Joseph Logan, who's a corporal in the Marine Corps, died with 5 other Marines in a helicopter crash during a fight in Afghanistan in January. 4 months later, via UPS truck, they received a form letter from the president. The same as other letters that go to other service people killed in action. All that's different is the name, rank, and service unit.
And you know what? Those young men make their decision. They're soldiers. They serve honorably. And you know what? I'm not talking about making it a political attack on any president. I just want the parents to be understood, or the loved ones to get the letter.
Monica where are you calling from, Monica?
I'm calling from Korčula, the island of Korčula in the country of Croatia.
Beautiful island, I'm told.
It is a beautiful island. You ought to come and visit us.
Okay, I'll come hunting.
I just wanted to call to say, John, I agree with you so much. This is such a horrible thing. My husband and I are going to write a letter from ourselves to the parents of Joseph Logan. If our president has time to go on David Letterman and he has time to be eye candy on The View, why doesn't he have time to send a heartfelt personal letter to the people who lose their lives, to the family, to the survivors?
Because he's going on Nickelodeon today.
You know, I got to tell you guys something. We voted by absentee ballot, and we have already voted him off the island. So I'm hoping we can vote him out of Washington, too. He's a disgrace.
Thank you, Monica.
Thanks, Monica.
And apologies to the staff here. When I saw Croatia on the screen, I really doubted it was really Croatia. I thought it was Monica from Crete.
No. Crete, and you meant Crete, the island, the beautiful island of Crete, which is, as you know, Greek.
Don in Lake Forest. Good morning, Don.
Hey, guys. You know, I'm really torn on this subject. I have a son who's been serving in the Marine Corps for 9 years, and it's definitely impersonal. I would love to see the president standing at every gravesite for every funeral, but that's not going to happen. But I think a handwritten letter is definitely the least he could do. But at the same token, at 19 years old, Mom and Dad are sitting with my son, who was just recently a PFC in the Marine Corps, and we're having what they call the talk. And the talk consisted of, Mom and Dad, this is my choice. I've chosen to wear this uniform. If anything happens to me while I'm in this uniform and I am killed, do nothing to disrespect my name. And that's where I'm torn. You know,
Don, I think you're absolutely
right. They made this decision. No one's sending them there. They've decided that this is what they want to do. So I think the parents should have backed off on this. If they didn't get a letter, that was to their satisfaction, I'm sorry, but you know, I'm sure their son had the same talk with them.
You know, it's
Thank
like,
you, Don.
Did we lose Don? Yeah, you have the talk with your kid. And yes, we talked about this earlier in the show, that what my anger's about, and yours, I think, Jake, is not about making the president look bad, but wondering, why isn't he doing it? And still you have these soldiers who say, like Don from the recent caller, don't make a big deal of it, Dad.
You know, the president has an image team around him. They look for the backdrops. They look for Everything. I mean,
too many Asians or Greeks in the photograph.
yeah. You look at the
behind
people.
him.
Yeah,
Let's
you look.
move
Yeah,
them
look
in
at a
and
town
out.
hall. You look at the
Right.
people behind. They set it up like a portrait, and you would think they would have people in the White House who would be sensitive to this. Are you telling me there's nobody in the White House that's sensitive to this? When Rahm Emanuel was chief of staff, he wasn't sensitive to this. He's a good politician. When Bill Daley was chief of staff, he wasn't sensitive to this.
I think sending drones is a lot easier than sending men.
Tina and Homer Gwen. Good morning, Tina.
Good morning, gentlemen. My two favorite, one my favorite columnist and the other one my favorite radio broadcast.
So you read my column, don't you?
And you
I
like
only
my
get up on
broadcast.
Saturday mornings just to listen to you.
You
And
get up for
John,
the polka.
You're the only reason I buy the Tribune. It's certainly not my delivery man. I am just infuriated. I have a son-in-law who have served in both Afghanistan and in Iraq. If a letter like that came to this house, and I live with my daughter and son-in-law, I can tell you it would take all of the Secret Service men that they could muster up to pull me off of that man. To me, a form letter is an insult. It's something you send to people with credit cards in bulk. And someone's life is not in bulk here. This is something that affects me deeply. My son-in-law has made shadow boxes for all the servicemen in our family. I have letters from Governor Stratton back in the 40s when my uncle served in the military, thanking my grandmother for the service of my uncles, and that their injuries were not in vain. And it's on onion skin typed. So to me, this is a true insult.
Thank you, Tina.
Thanks, Tina, although I know deep down that Tina would not do what she said because she's one of those who's patriotic and loves her country.
Megan in Will County. Good morning, Megan.
Good morning, guys.
Hey.
My cousin was killed in Afghanistan last year, First Lieutenant Damon Lehan, and I was with his wife when she received her form letter from the president. We were in Oklahoma, and I had been there for the funeral and just hanging out with them. And that night we had a big bonfire, and we lit it up like a 4th of July because it was totally impersonal. It had an auto pen signature. I don't even think it was a real signature. It didn't look like it. It looked like a stamp. And we know exactly what the president thinks about our soldiers and how he wants to cut their budget. And I know what my cousin thought about him, too. And believe me, he was smiling when we lit that letter up because we had a good time burning it. Because we know the president gives our soldiers the finger, so we thought we'd give it back.
Thank you, Megan.
I don't know, Megan. I'm sorry for her loss, but I just do not want to believe that our president, though I disagree with him on policy, I just can't believe he would give the soldiers the finger. I think that he's got bad advice, and he should correct himself.
He is the president.
He is the president, and I'm not. I'm not Mr. Liberal supporter and protector.
He's got to see this story today. He's got it because he says what's going on in the news, and they show him the news.
Right.
He's got a BlackBerry. He gets everything.
And he's got a knockoff going on The View and start writing a few letters to boys who died.
10:45, time for traffic right now on 89 WL.
Coming up today, 2 on Roan Roper. Rodney on the offensive.
Plus, a man wins his wife's weight in beer.
Roan Roper afternoons, 2 to 6, 89 WLS.
10:50.
John Cass, Jake Hartford in for Bruce and Dan on WLS 89.
Let's get another call in here, John. Joe and Carroll Stream. Good morning, Joe.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Joe.
I just want to comment about Johnny's his sincerity in telling off that guy who thought it was okay for them to fire out form letters. What an idiot this president is. Maybe they should have Hillary write these letters because he obviously spends too much time golfing and jumping around from show to show. And I like the other lady's thoughts to handwrite her own letter to that family. I would love to see everybody in this listening area write letters to that family, handwrite letters and thanking them for their son's time in service. And
Joe,
the insincerity of this president, he doesn't have it in him to write this letter. he doesn't know what's going on. We got to get him out of here.
Joe, what we're doing, we're trying to get a hold of the reporter from the station KPRC in Houston and see if we can get an email address or somehow to get letters from our listeners, because you're not the first person. There's a lot of people off the air want to do this and put it on the website, correct?
Just love to flood their house with, and not UPS them, send them, USPS mail or send them to the local recruiting office and have them walk them over to the house would be the best thing. A UPS truck pulling up, you got to be kidding.
4 months after the fact.
Unreal.
You know what the better thing
Thanks, Joe. Good idea.
than letters, Joe? Oh, sorry, Joe. Better thing than letters is not sending any boys over there in the first place. That's even better than a letter.
You know what also it amazes me is this administration, and I talked about, the optics, the visual they always do. When the president gets into a crowd, he likes to personalize. I met so-and-so who's been out of work for 2 years, or I met so-and-so who doesn't have this. It's always somebody that you can connect with, a person to get their personal story.
Right.
But when it comes down to it, not real personal with this. Not personal at all. Cassandra in the car. Good morning, Cassandra.
Good morning. First of all, thank you to everybody who has served this country. First, small ball is that it shouldn't be sent UPS. It should be sent United States Postal Service. Secondly, we shouldn't be paying for that. But secondly, if you do not have the depth of character to face the people who are the parents and family of the men and women that you sent to risk their lives for this country, you do not have the depth of character to be President of the United States and Commander-in-Chief. Hello?
Thank you, Cassandra.
There's nothing else to say, Cassandra.
Could have sent a drone and dropped the letter. He's very good with drones.
Our staffer.
They could have had, again,
PR staff.
They could have had, with the Pentagon is so big,
right?
They could have had how their son died, and this goes for everybody.
They could
whose son or
compose a
daughter
letter
dies.
for him.
Here are
letter.
the details,
right?
And they can write the letter and send it out that way. I mean, according to the professor who studies these things in history, President George Bush, he would personalize the letters, and in some cases even handwrite the letters.
Yes, he did.
Of course, he didn't do as much fundraising or golfing.
And he was hated.
And
ridiculed.
10:54, we're hated and ridiculed as well. Jake and John in for Bruce and Dan right here in 89 WLS. Back after this.
89
WLS.
An ABC News update is just minutes away. 89 WLS. And online at WLSAM.com.
Jake Hartford with John Cass.
Hey, Jake.
I can't believe we're out of time.
It really went by fast today. And
it almost seems like 2 hours.
Good one, dude. That's good.
You've got a column to write for tomorrow, don't you?
I got a column to write. I got a couple hot dogs to eat. What else is there to do? Since I want to eat healthy.
You have to, yeah.
Right.
You have to eat healthy. Thanks to everybody who took part in the show, and we're going to try to get some information up on the WLSAM.com website for the family of Corporal Joseph Logan, who died in Afghanistan in January, and whose family got the form letter 4 months after the fact, delivered by UPS truck. Nothing against UPS.
Hoorah.
But again, the government has enough people. They could have handled this a lot better. They should be handling it a lot better.
Let's hope they do.
Anyway, we're out of here. Rush is coming up in a couple minutes. He'll have the latest on what's going on in the campaign. Romney versus Obama, Big Bird versus who knows who. Then Rowan Roper will have your afternoon drive home from 2 until 6 right here on 89 WLS. We'll be back in 22.